Are solar batteries worth it in New Zealand? Short answer, yes, but probably not for the reason most people think. Most people assume solar batteries are mainly about saving money, and they absolutely can save a significant amount on your power bills, but the value of batteries actually goes beyond just the financial return. Because along with those savings, you'll get things like power during an outage, the ability to use your solar at night, and a lot more independence from the grid. And once you understand those benefits together, the whole idea of solar batteries just starts to make a lot more sense. So let's unpack that. If you're designing a solar power system from scratch, the smartest approach is usually to maximize the solar panels first. Solar panels are relatively cheap, and batteries are still the most expensive part of the system. So if you're working with a fixed budget, putting that money into more solar generation first usually delivers the biggest initial return. Then adding batteries allows you to capture and use more of that solar energy, which increases your overall savings. And just to be clear, solar batteries absolutely do reduce power bills. In fact, later in the video, I'll show you exactly how much my battery saved me last year. And that leads nicely to the real reason people install them. There are three big ones. First, backup power during an outage. If the grid goes down, a home with solar panels alone usually shuts off as well. But if you have a battery system set up for backup, your home can keep running. Lights stay on, fridge stays cold, and the internet keeps working. That peace of mind is a big deal. But there's also a really useful feature worth knowing about if you're considering a battery. Most batteries allow you to reserve a portion of the battery specifically for outages. So you might tell the system to always keep 20 to 30% of the battery in reserve. That way, if the grid suddenly goes down, you still have energy stored for essential things like the fridge and the internet. And some batteries also have smart features that prepare for storms. They connect to weather data, and if a major storm is forecasted that could cause outages, the battery will automatically charge itself from the grid in advance. So even if it's been cloudy for a few days, the battery makes sure it's full before the storm arrives. Second, you get to use your solar power at night. Without a battery, solar power works a little bit like this. At 1 p.m, your roof might be producing far more electricity than your home needs. Your dishwasher might be running, maybe the heat pump, but you're still exporting a lot of energy to the grid. Then 8 p.m. rolls around, the sun has gone down, and suddenly you're buying electricity back from the power company again, even though you were producing heaps of solar power just a few hours earlier. A battery basically moves that solar energy from the middle of the day into the evening, which is when most households actually need it. Third, more independence from the grid. This is something I hear a lot. People like the idea of generating their own electricity, not completely reliant on the power companies, and a battery moves you one step closer to that. To make this a little bit more real, I actually looked at the data from my own house, and the results were pretty interesting. For context, I run mysolarquotes.co.nz, where I help thousands of New Zealanders each year to get quotes for solar and battery systems from installers. So I spend a lot of time looking at the latest equipment on the market, solar panels, inverters, and batteries, and helping people make sense of the options. And that's why I thought it'd be useful to show you what the numbers look like on my own system, which was installed just over a year ago. And our house uses a whopping 50 kilowatt hours of electricity per day on average. That's quite high. But I have a few power-hungry things, including an electric vehicle. We currently have a 13.5 kilowatt hour battery installed. And when I look back at the energy data from last year, I realized something surprising. On plenty of sunny days, the battery was already full by midday, but the solar panels were still producing heaps of power, which means we were exporting energy that we actually could have stored instead. So in our case, adding another battery module would probably make sense. The good news is that many battery systems are modular, which means you can add extra capacity later, almost like stacking Lego blocks. Here's what my numbers look like. The biggest chunk of savings came from solar going into the house and saved us about $2,050 on power bills. The battery also made a big contribution. By storing excess solar during the day and using it later in the evening, the battery saved about $735. But the battery actually saved even more than that because we also charged it during the free overnight electricity hours on our electricity plan. When you include that, the total savings from the battery came out to be $1,238 for the year. Just to note, some electricity retailers are stopping their solar customers from using those free hours of power, so you might have to hunt around to find something similar. Then there's solar energy we exported back to the grid. Even though we exported a decent amount of solar electricity, that only saved us about $168. And that really highlights one of the reasons batteries can make a lot of sense in New Zealand. We're paying around 39 cents per unit to buy electricity, but we're only getting about 8 cents when we export it. That's the rate our retailer offers. Some power companies pay a little bit more, and I'll put a link in the description below where you can compare all the buyback rates in New Zealand. So storing that solar energy in a battery and using it later is often far more valuable than exporting it. Altogether, the solar power system and battery saved us about $3,457 on electricity over the year. A quick note on battery reserve. I should also mention that I usually keep my battery reserve level quite high. That means I could have stored even more solar energy in the battery and squeezed out a little bit more savings. But personally, I prefer the comfort of knowing there's always plenty of stored power in case of an outage. Looking at the overall economics of my system, if I consider the solar power system by itself without the batteries, the payback is sitting at about 7 years. When I include the battery as well, the total system payback moves closer to 10 years, and that's based on today's electricity prices. Given the massive price increase we've been seeing in New Zealand recently, I actually expect that payback to end up shorter than that, so that raises the next question: what size battery actually makes sense? Most households aren't using 50 kilowatt hours per day. A more typical home in New Zealand uses around 20 kilowatt hours a day. For that type of household, a 10 kilowatt hour battery is usually a pretty good fit. In my opinion, the smallest battery that really starts to make sense is around 8 kilowatt hours. Anything smaller tends to empty very quickly. Most battery systems installed today are somewhere between 10 and 15 kilowatt hours, which is enough to run the house through the evening and into the night. And of course it means you've got a decent amount of stored power available if there's an outage. And this is exactly why we're seeing more and more households adding batteries to their solar power systems. In fact, 39% of New Zealanders who installed solar in 2025 also installed a battery at the same time. Just a few years ago, batteries were still considered quite niche. Now they're quickly becoming mainstream. A big reason for that is energy resilience. And this becomes really clear after recent extreme weather events we've been experiencing in New Zealand. After Cyclone Gabrielle in Hawke's Bay, I heard some incredible stories from households with solar batteries. One family said they didn't even realise there had been a blackout until they saw it on the news. Their home kept running normally. Another household was running extension cords over the fence to their neighbours, generously sharing their battery power so people next door could keep their freezers going. One small business I spoke to was able to continue operating even though there wasn't power in the area for a couple of weeks. And one story that really stuck with me was a flooded home that still had power and the internet. They were able to communicate with people to let them know they were safe. That kind of resilience is incredibly valuable. Solar batteries absolutely save money by allowing you to use more of your own solar energy, but they also deliver something just as valuable: resilience, independence, and the comfort of knowing your home can keep running when the grid goes down. For many households, that combination makes them absolutely worthwhile. If you're considering a solar and battery system, the most important thing you can do is compare a few properly designed quotes. Different installers recommend different brands, system sizes, and battery setups. So it's worth seeing a few options side by side and making sure to specify the features you'd like from the battery, as not all batteries are made equal. If you'd like to do that, you can request quotes from trusted installers through My Solar Quotes. I'll put a link in the description below.